My name is Rick Crosslin, and today we're going to be doing a special project that involves plants. Now, when you do science with plants, you're doing biology, which is life science, because the word bio means life. And you have probably seen lots of plants grow in your life. You might have some plants at home that you take care of, or you might drive past a garden, or even a field where a farmer has planted corn or soybeans or tomatoes. So plants are all around you, but this lesson, we're going to grow 4 plants, and we're going to do it in a science way. And since we're going to do it in a science way, we're going to start with some questions, we're going to develop a hypothesis, we're going to talk about variables, a procedure, we're going to collect information and data, and we're going to see if we can draw a conclusion. Those are some of the steps we're going to do in this science experiment. Let's get started. Look at your worksheet, and this worksheet, we want to put the name of it, and the name of it is Garden Glove. Garden Glove. And you can go ahead and put the date today and your name. Your name goes over here. And this is grade 3 that we're working on today. Now you can learn more about this project and life science at my website, indianaexpeditions.org, and I have several shows that have to do with plants and life cycles. So here's our garden glove with our date. Go ahead and get that set up. Since we're doing this in a science way, we want to keep really good notes, and we're going to use our science worksheet to do that. And the first thing we're going to do about our plants is ask a question. Now, we're going to be planting 4 seeds, and these seeds are turning into bean plants. And you have 2 different types of plants. You have some pinto beans, which will make a pinto plant, and you have some other beans, which will make another type of bean plant. So when we plant these, we're going to do some things all the same to all 4 of them. But 2 of them, we're going to do something different too. Those are going to be our experimental plants. All right, let's take a look at what our question is going to be. Ask a question about something you observe. First of all, you just want to watch me and listen to me write this. Your teachers will write it on the board. And here's our question. Does plant food, and the name for plant food is fertilizer, does plant food help plants grow taller? And that's a question, so we put a question mark on it. Does plant food, which is called fertilizer, help plants grow taller? That's our question. Go ahead and write that on your worksheet. Okay, you have your question. In any science investigation, we start with a question. We try to turn that question into a hypothesis that we can test. A hypothesis is a possible answer to the question, but it has to be testable. Let's take a look at our hypothesis, okay? Number 2, state your hypothesis, okay? Here's our question. Does plant food help plants grow taller? And I like to use the words if, then, and because. So let me write it first. If, then, because. That really helps me with my hypothesis. All right, if fertilizer, which is food, is added to bean seeds, okay? If fertilizer is added to bean seeds, then the plants will grow taller, comma, because food, the fertilizer, provides energy. That's our hypothesis. If fertilizer is added to the bean seeds, okay, there's my if, then the plants will grow taller. That's what we think then, because the food or the fertilizer provides energy. This is our hypothesis. That's what we're going to work on. Go ahead and put that on your worksheet. Okay, we have a question, we have a hypothesis, but when we do an investigation, we want to talk about something called variables. And remember, here are our variables. We have control variables that we want to make sure that there is a fair test. A fair test, that each plant is treated the same. We want it to have the same sun, the same water. We're going to put it in the same glove. All of these, and your teacher can talk about more of the things that are going to be the same in our fair test. Now, this is a big word for dependent variable. That means what we're going to measure. And we're going to measure how tall the plants, how tall the plants grow. We're going to measure how tall they grow. And we're going to do that in centimeters. Abbreviation for centimeters is cm. Okay? Right now, it's 0 centimeters. And our last experimental variable, 2 plants get food. Okay? 2 plants get food. And 2 plants, no food. Okay? So, 2 plants get food, those are experimental, and 2 plants, no food. Okay, you had a chance to write your question, your hypothesis, and your control variables, and your teacher has already passed out all your materials. And I have them on your worksheet. So you have a glove, 4 seeds, a barrel pipette, 2 cotton balls, a small piece of green paper, and some fertilizer pellets. All that's left is our procedure, which is on the back of the worksheet, and then we're going to put our results that we have after the end of this project, which is about 3 weeks long to let these grow. So what I would like you to do right now, take a look at this part here on the data. Bean A is a pinto, okay? So go ahead and write the word pinto right here. Pinto. And bean B is going to be a pinto. P-I-N-T-O. Now you might choose, I don't know what you're going to use for C and D because you have a choice. But whatever C is, make sure it's D. So if you use a lima, make sure D is a lima. Or if you do a kidney bean, make sure that D is a kidney bean. Or you might just want to try all pintos, but I've got this set up so A and B are the same type and C and D are the same type. And this is where we're going to put our height in centimeters at the end of 3 weeks. Now, what we hope is going to happen is that you can write a statement here about your hypothesis about your question. And then you're going to circle at the end of this investigation, my data does or my data does not. One of these you're going to choose because we want to see if our data does or does not support our hypothesis. Okay, we've had a chance to look at the front of our worksheet. Now let's turn it over before we start building or planting our seeds, the back of our worksheet. And it looks like this. I'll put my name on mine. You do the same thing. And if you notice, this is a diagram. Scientists like to use diagrams. And it also has a scale on the side, a centimeter ruler, to help you judge your plants. And it has A, B, C, and D for our 4 fingers. and a thumb for your name. And we have a chart down here where after day 3, day 7, day 11, and day 14, that we're going to measure our plants, okay? All of these are part of our procedure right here where it says take care of your plants. But let's start by looking at plant A. Plant A is going to be a pinto bean, so write the word pinto right here. Okay? Plant B is going to be a pinto. I'm going to put B right there. And I'm going to use, for my C and D, I'm going to use red kidney beans. You might have a different bean. Your teacher can help you with that. But if C is a red kidney, D is going to be a red kidney. Yours might be a lima. I'm not sure. Go ahead and label your chart with the bean plants you have. There's something I want us to do before we actually start planting these. And you might do this with me. Okay, take your pencil. This finger right here is going to be the control plant. I'm going to turn that so you can see it. Go ahead and write control plant on that finger. Control plant. B is going to be our experimental plant. Experimental plant. A is a control, B is an experimental. This is C. C is going to be a control plant. And that leaves D as an experimental. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Experimental plant. Go ahead and see how I've got these on these 4 fingers? Go ahead and get your diagram ready for your investigation. It's important that scientists keep good records, and so that's why 2 of our plants are going to be controlled and 2 are going to be experimental. So we have our control and our experimental plants, and what you're going to do in just a moment is you're going to take your cotton ball and tear it in half and put 1/2 a cotton ball here and 1/2 a cotton ball here. And I'll demonstrate this. The cotton is going to act like the soil or the substrate for the plant to grow. And you're going to put 1/2 of a cotton ball here and 1/2 of a cotton ball here. So you can go ahead and draw that in. Your teacher has given you a green piece of paper, and that green piece of paper we're going to put in here so everybody has a green thumb. And you're going to put your name on it and the date. Put the date in here, the month and the year, and then turn it over and do the same thing on both sides of this. A lot of people tell me that they can't grow plants. And when I hear that, I just kind of smile because there's no mystery to growing plants if you give them their basic needs. And so these plants that we're going to grow have some basic needs. They need a little bit of warmth, a little bit of water, a little bit of sunshine, and a place to grow. And if we do that, anybody should be able to grow a bean plant. I'm going to go ahead and draw, and you can too. This is where I'm going to put one of my bean seeds, my pinto bean seed, and it kind of looks like this. I'm going to draw that in. And my pinto bean is the brown one with these little spots on it. Since that's a pinto, and B is a pinto. Okay? They actually look like this. There's my pinto, and here's my pinto bean. Okay? So I just drew those in there. Now let's look at C and D, shall we? This I'm going to use a red kidney bean, and it looks like this. It's kind of and it's red. And it's red. I don't know if I have a red marker, but I think I do. Just so I know the difference, I might color this one. You don't have to do this, but there's my red kidney bean and my red kidney bean. Go ahead and draw your two beans. Here's what it looks like. There's my red kidney bean. A control pinto and experimental pinto. A control kidney and experimental kidney. Okay, we have one more thing that we need to add to our drawing, and that is the food pellets that we're going to add to our experimental plants. And if you remember, our experimental plants are B and D. So let me show you what that looks like on our drawing. Here's our A, B, C, and D. The experimental is B and D. And so what I'm going to add in just a moment, I'm going to add 3 food pellets to B, because that's our experimental. And I'm going to add 3 food pellets to D, because that is my experimental. And just to help you remember that, I might even change the color of these. So my food. Okay. So we're going to add 3 food pellets, and they look like this. These are some time-release food pellets. You should have 6 of these. And we're going to add those to our B and D, our experimental. And as soon as you get this worksheet done, we're going to start the investigation by building and planting our seeds. All right, now the fun time starts, because we're going to take our garden glove. This is a food service glove, and be careful with it because they're not very strong. And this is what we're going to use to plant our seeds in. And I put it on a green background so you can see it a little bit better. A, B, C, and D. Let's find your small green piece of paper, and it should be a small enough piece that can fit in your glove. So I'm going to write my name on the front and today's date, and I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to write my name on the back and today's date, and I'm going to push it in my thumb so I know now that I have a green thumb. It's now time to take the cotton balls, and you have 2 of them. That's kind of interesting. Cotton is actually a product of a plant, and we're using a plant to help another plant grow. So I'm going to take my cotton balls. I have 2 of them, and you can kind of look and see that if you pull them one way, they come apart. So 1 becomes 2. Don't wad them up too much. Keep them kind of nice and round. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 4. I'm going to turn this so I can have better access to it. And you can do 4 at once or 1 at a time. But now we need to find a way to get these cotton balls into A, B, C, and D. And you guys have smaller fingers than I do, so it should be easier. Here we go. Kind of pushing them on down. Be careful not to tear a hole in it. There we go. We got getting them going there. All right, so I got all 4 of them in here. A, B, C, and D. They look like this. There's my A, B, C, and D. You have your cotton, and that's where the seed will develop. So now it's time to put our seeds into the correct fingers. The pintos go in A and B, and your other 2 seeds go in C and D. And it goes like this. Pintos. A. Pintos in B. I'm using kidney beans. Kidney, C, and D. Now it's not important if they're on top or the bottom or in between the cotton. Just want to make sure they're in there. Pinto and A, pinto and B, kidney and C, kidney and D. Of course, you may be using other seeds in C and D, but it looks like this. A, B, C, and D. And don't worry if some of them are on top or on the other side. It doesn't matter for the plant. We had the 4 seeds planted in our cotton balls and our fingers. Remember, we're going to do 2 control and 2 experimental. So now it's time to add food to the experimental. And if you look back on your chart, on your worksheet, you know that the experimental is BD. So we're going to add food, 3 pellets, 3 fertilizer pellets to B and 3 to D. And it goes like this. It's not easy, you don't want to tear these, but I'm getting 3 food pellets go in my experimental B. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I just kind of shake it down just a little bit. All right. 3 in B. Now I need to get 3 in D. And here's my 3 for D. Remember, these are time-released food pellets or fertilizer that contain nutrients or chemicals that plants need to grow. So we think by adding these, B and D will grow taller. That's our hypothesis, and we need to be able to prove it by seeing if it actually happens. So there's my 3. B and D are my experimental plants. Okay, got them in there. Shake it down just a little bit. And my plants are almost ready to go. So I have control, experimental, control, experimental, and my green thumb. Okay, so my garden glove is ready. And your teacher is going to help you by putting 2 pieces of tape on it, like I've done here. And I've kind of kept it open. And I'm going to show you our next step. We need to water these and then place them in the sunlight. Now you have 2 choices. You can place them on the window, or you can place them on your cabinets that get a lot of sunshine. But it's interesting because the window might be cooler with more sun, and the cabinet might be warmer but less sunlight. So you get to decide. You might even want to split some on the window and some on the cabinet. That's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and put this one right here just for a second. Let's see, I tape that here, and I tape this one right here. It's hanging on my window. And I have, we'll leave some barrel pipettes with you. And we need to water these. Now, this part is pretty interesting because you can kill these by putting too much water in them. So I'm only going to put about 4 drops of water in each one. So here's my first one. Here's A. And I'm going to do like 4 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to make sure they stay watered but not soaking wet. Maybe 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then finally in D, remember that fair test. We want the watering to be the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's kind of important to make sure that they have water, but we don't want to overwater them. So you need to keep back a couple pipettes so you can do this. All right, so I have one more thing to share with you, because right now, as soon as you hang those up and they start to get sunlight and they get water and a little bit of warmth, something amazing is happening to the seed. In your science book, you'll find a whole section on germinating seeds, or how seeds grow. Right now inside of your seed is the entire plant ready to take off. There's a seed coat surrounding the seed, and there's a leaf inside of the seed, and there's also part of the root inside the seed. And so all of that is ready to go. As you add water, here's what's going to happen to that seed. It starts to germinate, which means to grow, break open and grow. And up will come the first leaf, and down will go roots. And that's pretty amazing. So you can learn a lot about your plant by studying your book. Okay, so it's called germination when a seed starts to crack open and grow. And you can study it in your book. It looks kind of like this inside of the seed right now. If we cut it open, there is a seed coat on the outside of the seed. Okay? And there's the start of a little leaf, two of them actually, and they're curled around, and then there's a big part of the seed which has food and such in it, and then there's a part that might turn into the root, that should turn into the root. And so that's inside of your seed right now. You have a seed coat and part of the leaf, and what's going to happen then is coming out of the bottom is going to be the start of the root, and coming out of the top is going to be the start of one leaf and a second leaf. Okay? That's going to be in your cotton ball here. So you get a root, and you get a leaf, and then eventually what's going to happen is those two leaves will continue to grow, but up will come more leaves, and these leaves will get even bigger, and they'll have bigger veins in them. Okay? And this plant will continue to grow like that, adding leaves and leaves. And at the same time, the roots will continue to grow, soaking up more nutrients and more food, until you get a plant that has roots, a stem for transporting, roots for holding and bringing up nutrients, and leaves for making food, and finally you'll get a flower. And if you don't believe me, I'd like to share with you a photograph of a student in 3rd grade at another school I worked with, and after her project was done in a couple weeks, she took her bean plants and planted them in a pot with some more soil, because all living things need food, water, and a space to grow. And this is what hers looked like after a couple of weeks. Her bean plant started in her garden glove and turned into a wonderful, full plant with roots, stem, leaves, seeds, and more beans. She ended up getting more beans off of hers. So, you now have everything you need to be plant scientist. You're studying life science, biology. In fact, you're a special type of scientist today. You're a botanist, a scientist that studies plants. Good luck on your investigation. Take really good notes, take good measurements, and come to your conclusion in a couple weeks whether or not your hypothesis is supported or not supported by data.